The most common question my outward bound students ask while we're hiking is, are we there yet? And what I always tell them to do is measure the distance on the map. The method that I teach them is how to measure distance using the string on your compass. You'll start by tying a knot in the loop so you know where your string starts and ends. You'll place the knot on your starting location and then very carefully trace your route using the string. Make sure to hug every change in direction, whether it's a switchback or going around a ridge line. At the end, you can compare the distance of string that you've measured onto the scale bar of your map and get a really accurate assessment of what you're in for the day. Using a straight edge like a ruler or the side of your compass is going to mean that you're going to shortchange the guess of how far you're going and be prepared for a shorter day than you're actually going to have. So being careful and accurate with something flexible like a string is going to put an end to the age-old question of, are we there yet? You'll know exactly how far you have left to go. There are 3 factors to consider when calculating your travel time. The first is the distance you've already calculated. Now, a really fit hiker with no pack on a flat trail can hike maybe 3 to 4 miles per hour. The other factors that can slow you down are whether or not you're carrying a pack and what you're actually traveling on, whether that's snow, gravel, or big loose rocks like talus. The last factor is going to be your elevation gain and loss. When you're planning your route, you should find the elevation of point A and then the elevation of point B, but that's not quite enough. You're also going to need to know if there's any gain and loss within your route. My students always ask, can't we just take point A and point B and call that my elevation change? Not really, because for every 1,000 feet of elevation change, you're going to want to add an hour to your travel time. And if you're going up and over a peak or a pass in your travel plan, then you're going both up and down and can add several hours on either end, even if you're going a short distance. Now, calculating your elevation gain and loss doesn't necessarily mean you have to sit down and count every individual brown contour line on your map. This is where those dark brown index contours come in really handy. Those ones are labeled at 200 feet intervals, and you can skip a lot of steps if you just count those ones going up to the highest point of elevation and then down. Another question my students ask me a lot is, why do we add an hour of travel time for going downhill? Shouldn't we subtract an hour? And the answer to that is that a lot of people actually hike a lot slower going downhill. The added momentum, and especially if you have a heavy backpack, means that your footing can be a lot more precarious and it can just be harder on your knees. So we take care to account for each directional change, up and downhill. When calculating your elevation gain and loss, take care to carefully look at the index contour lines. One time in Alaska, I was expecting a 2,000 foot change in elevation, but it wound up being over 4,000 feet because I didn't take the time to read that the index contours accounted for an 80-foot change in elevation as opposed to a 40-foot change. We wound up getting into camp around 11:30 at night, and you don't want that to happen to you. Be careful and read your map.